You've completed your second week of studies in New Testament Exposition 1. This lesson, entitled Jesus, Gospel Relationships in the Gospel According to Matthew, covered quite a bit of material. We began with a discussion of the dates for Jesus' birth, which we argued could be dated to around 5 BC, and his death, which we suggested could be dated to around AD 33. This is based on, among other things, on the critical datum that the occurrence of Nisan 14 on a Thursday in that year. We next moved to a discussion of the writing of the Gospels, and we suggested marking priority and assuming that view, that Mark was written first, then most likely Matthew followed by Luke. We suggest that the two-document hypothesis has traditionally been understood as a consensus view, though it's unclear that if that claim can still be made. However, this view also relies on the hypothetical source document referred to as Q from the German word Quelle, meaning source. After our discussions of the synoptic problem, we turned our attention to the Gospel according to Matthew. It was discovered that Papias, the Bishop of Hierapolis, was the earliest external witness to contend that Matthew wrote a Gospel. Matthew most likely wrote his Gospel pre-AD 70, and most likely any time beginning in the mid-50s, and more likely in the early 60s. A pre-70 date is important to maintain because often there is an unspoken belief that goes along with the dating of scheme, namely, that Jesus could not have predicted the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. The literary structure of Matthew was found to be quite intriguing. The overall structure of Matthew's Gospel may be discerned by the presence of the phrase, "when Jesus had finished saying these things," a phrase that sets off each of the adjacent narrative portions. It occurs at 7:28, 11:1, 13:53, 19:1, and 26:1. Two of the key extended sections in Matthew are one, the Sermon on the Mount, which occurs in chapters 5 through 7, and the Olivet Discourse, that is, the final eschatological discourse that occurs in chapters 24 and 25. The former section is introduced by chapters 1 through 4, which are highlighted by their emphasis on the fulfillment of the Old Testament. It was discovered that some of the unique contributions of Matthew to the canon include the genealogy of Jesus, the son of Abraham, the son of David, in chapter 1, verse 1 through 17, the account of the virgin birth in chapter 1, verse 18 through 25, the fulfillment quotation following Jesus as the Messiah in chapters 1 through 4, the 5 major discourses or teaching sections of Jesus, including the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 through 7, the commissioning or instruction of the 12 in chapter 10, Jesus' parables of the kingdom in chapter 13, more kingdom parables in chapter 18, and his final kingdom parables, including the Olivet Discourse on the end times in chapter 24 and chapter 25. The final contribution that Matthew makes to the canon is the Great Commission in chapter 18, 28, verses 16 through 20. Mark Dever has noted, only Matthew records this final call of Jesus to preach the gospel to the ethne, to all nations.